for sharing that insight. Now we move on to our next story. A diplomatic spat has erupted between India and Pakistan over the Indus Waters Treaty, after Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif accused New Delhi of endangering regional stability by suspending the agreement. In a sharp rebuttal at a UN conference in Dushanbe, India said Pakistan was misusing the platform for political messaging and reminded Islamabad of its own violations. India's Minister of State for Environment, Kirti Vardhan Singh, told delegates at the UN conference on glaciers that Pakistan's remarks were completely unrelated to the forum's purpose. He said New Delhi strongly objected to what it saw as an attempt to politicize a technical and environmental platform. He also pointed out that since the treaty was signed in 1960, global conditions have significantly changed, ranging from climate change and population growth to repeated acts of cross-border terrorism. According to Singh, these developments called for a fresh look at the treaty and its obligations. India, which suspended the treaty on April 23rd, just a day after the deadly terror attack in Pahalgam that killed 26 civilians, said the decision was a non-military step made in response to repeated violations by Pakistan. Prior to India's remarks, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif had criticized New Delhi's move, calling it one-sided and warning that it posed serious risks to millions of people. He accused India of politicizing water sharing for narrow domestic gains. India, for its part, maintained that the treaty was rooted in trust. It argued that Pakistan's continued support for terrorism undermines that very foundation, making the proper implementation of the treaty increasingly difficult. The Indus Waters Treaty, brokered by the World Bank in 1960, governs the sharing of the Indus River system between the two countries. Despite decades of hostilities, it has often been cited as a rare example of sustained cooperation between India and Pakistan. Now we have guests joining us. Shruti Das Gupta, she's a geopolitical expert. Thank you for staying with us, Shruti. How should India interrupt or interpret Pakistan's comments on the Indus Waters Treaty at an international forum?
Pakistan loves to go crying to its big daddies, which stay in UN. So this is something that is where India knows very often. It has violated its ceasefires numerous times since it was signed in 2013, and yet it still goes to the UN and cries wolf. And this time, when we have taken a non-kinetic action of putting the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance, it is now citing that it's a major impact on their agriculture and livelihoods of its people. But you have to understand, even before the abeyance of Indus Water Treaty, Pakistan's poor water management systems ensured that at least 20% of the kharif crops were lost. So they are, as it is, a country which have not planned for the future. Now, according to Vienna Convention, Article 60, this kind of an agreement can't be put in abeyance because there is a fundamental change in circumstances. And this is exactly the clause that India has used to put it in abeyance. Now, accusing India of waging water wars is something that is stretching the truth a little bit too much. Because of the treaty itself, India was not allowed to desilt its dams. That means that there was soil and silt allowed to build up inside the dams that were already present on the 20% water supply that India was only allowed to use. So out of the 6 rivers, 3 were allowed and only about 20% of the water was allowed to be used by India. Now, India is now 1.4 billion people. It is progressing. It has its own developmental graph, which Pakistan, unfortunately, is not following for itself. So at the desilting point, when there is a lack of water and an increase in population and production, India holds the right to kind of step back from a treaty that was not for its benefit and then reevaluate it with Pakistan. Unfortunately, right now, because Pakistan is a terror state and is refusing to acknowledge the fact that its military and terrorist groups walk hand in hand, share hoardings and the same platform to deliver speeches. So India is not in a mood to sit and talk to them. They would like to go to UN And unfortunately, IMF, World Bank, and the UN listen to it. But I'm very sure that now the footages that is coming out of Pakistan is showing its true face, that they're really not really concerned about their people. If they were, they wouldn't have planned the green project, which was to divert all the waters from the Sindh province region only to Punjab, Pakistan, to settle its army officers conclave. So Pakistan as a state ensures that only and only its army progresses. It doesn't really care about its kharif crop because it did not plan water properly and has already lost 20% of its kharif crops. So it is not about the livelihood of people. It is not about the sustenance. They are using the misery, which is a very standard playbook action by Pakistan, using the misery of its people that the administration and the military have themselves created to cry wolf at UN. And India is not taking any form of action on that kind of a dialogue.
And Shruti, switching gears here for a moment, given challenging climate conditions and regional security concerns, is there a case for revisiting or modernizing this Indus Waters Treaty or framework?
Definitely there is. Definitely there's a section where we can go ahead and have talks. But to sit at the talking table, Pakistan has to walk out of its terror camps. It has to mend its ways. It has to acknowledge that it was growing and nurturing terrorists and was doing all of this with the solo aim of destabilizing the sovereignty of India. So once it acknowledges that, mends its ways, I am very sure that dialogues can open back between these two countries. But if Pakistan continues the same way it does, a few days ago, its now Field Marshal Asim Munir spoke about it being a red line. So they are threatening us with war on water on one hand, and then they want to sit on the talking table without really acknowledging responsibly how they should go forth.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that insight, Shruti. And now we close this. Well, that's all we have time for. We will continue to bring more news updates from around the world.